What's up, everybody? It's me, E-Man from E-Man's Movie Reviews. Welcome back. We are here to talk about Season 1, Episode 9 of From. Guys, first and foremost, let me quickly apologize for the delay in between videos, but hey, better late than never, right? But yo, we have got to talk about this episode. My goodness, so much stuff just went down. But first, last time we left off, the town has finally come together to build the radio on top of Colony House. Also, Boyd has taken Crazy Sarah along with him into the woods in search for some answers. Okay, let's get right into this episode. Boyd and Sarah start their journey into the woods. They set up camp at the original location where Boyd originally found the talisman. As Kenny continues to step up in Boyd's absence, he and Christy continue to get their flirt on. The town and colony folk have merged together after the incident at Colony House. Some of the Colony House folks have moved into the sheriff's office. Meanwhile, Tabitha is finishing up her digging in the basement. She starts to go upstairs, except all of a sudden she finds herself going up a different pair of stairs. She hears a phone ringing, a baby crying, and a strange horn blowing in the distance. As she climbed up higher, she saw Jim hanging upside down. He started to yell, but the sound of the RV crash replaced his scream. She quickly wakes up from her nightmare. Alright, so first off, we see that the town is starting to come together after the horrible tragedy that happened at Colony House. And let me just say, I'm actually digging the fact that Kenny is stepping up in Boyd's absence here. You know, all this time, you know, we want to see Kenny kind of grow up a little bit, you know, and Boyd done gave him the keys to the kingdom. He was like, look, I'm out of here, so you the man now. And look, you know what? I like the fact that, you know, he's starting to step up with Christy too. Listen, I don't know about y'all, but I think I could really see them becoming a real couple. Can't you? But whatever. We need to talk about Tabitha and her dream because, whoa, there was so much going on here. At this point in the story, it's not clear where she was specifically, but it seemed like she was waking up in a tower of some sort. The horn that she heard sounded like a ship passing by or something like that. As for that baby that was crying and the phone ringing, I think that this was a direct callback to the traumatic passing of her baby son, Thomas. Back in episode 8, remember she had told Julie about how Thomas was on a changing table when the phone rang and the baby unfortunately fell. Now, we also saw a random bottle falling down the stairs, but we'll talk about that possible connection later in this video. Now, you also had Jim hanging upside down and screaming with the sound of the RV crash. Now, I'm not sure what to make of this either, but I think there's a possible explanation that will probably make sense a little bit later on in this video. Now, of course, I'm not sure how anyone could miss this. Probably the most interesting thing that we saw in this dream were the years that were written on the staircase. I do believe that these dates have a connection to what happened later in the episode, but one date that does stand out to me is 1864. During that time, the Civil War was happening, where the northern part of America was fighting the southern part over the issue of slavery. What's crazy is that this could possibly relate to Jade's vision of a black Union soldier from the Civil War. What these other dates could mean is anyone's guess. There are some significant historical things that happen during these dates, but how or if they connect to this crazy town is an entirely different question. Now, listen, I've tried my best to try and figure out if there was a pattern or some sort of connective tissue between all of these dates, but I really couldn't find anything too meaningful. You know, maybe a couple things would connect here, but all of them wouldn't really connect. So right now, you know, I'm still going to keep looking for that. If I can figure something out, I'll put that in a separate video. But I do think that right now, the most significant date that we can really pay attention to is 1864. That one seems to have more connective tissue just in this episode alone. So for now, I think that's our best bet, to just use that as a starting point to figure out what the hell is actually going on. Now, if you have any ideas or theories about these dates or how they connect, please let me know in the comments down below. Back to the story, Boyd continues into the woods with Sarah, but he carves some signs in the trees to try to mark his path. As they were walking, Sarah ended up telling Boyd that the voices in her head told her that she had to kill those specific people or her brother and everyone else in the town would end up dying. They also told her about the 2 cars that were about to come into the town. Boyd ends up believing her and believes that she's also not a threat, and therefore he goes ahead and uncuffs her. Okay, so it sounds like we actually have an explanation behind Sarah's actions. You know, the fact that she got Kenny's dad killed and that she was trying to kill Ethan. And a lot of it is because of what these voices told her. Now, it's not like she was bullied into this, but rather these voices predicted things that for whatever reason, they'd have no business knowing. Keep in mind, they also predicted that thing with Father Khatri that we saw later on. So, the fact that these voices told her that 2 cars were going to come at the same time. And this, of course, is an anomaly for the people in the town because they're used to only having 1 car come at a time. And let's not forget, Victor kept harping about the 2-car thing happening before, and this was like very unique. It was a very special situation when 2 cars would come into the town. And last time Victor was like, well, here we go again. But these voices also mentioned the consequences of not killing Ethan or, you know, the other people that Sarah ended up killing. And that was like everyone was going to die. And that's kind of like, you know, a screwed up situation and that she had to consider. And going back to Victor, the last time the 2-car thing happened with him, everyone in the town was brutally killed. So maybe these voices are trying to help avoid another massacre by pushing Sarah to only kill a few to save the many. But I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence as to whether these voices are good or not. I know obviously it's not good to murder, but what if that theory of killing a couple people, you know, actually sets people free? Or maybe you kill a few to save the many. Maybe that theory could be true. I'm not really sure, but I do recall that is what Abby thought. So what do you guys think? Could these voices be on the side of actually helping? Or are they also just evil and they just want to see more death? I don't know. You let me know. Donna has woken up to find Eric, one of the residents, has committed suicide by hanging himself. Traveling back to the colony house, Fatima and Ellis reflect on what life could be like if they were to ever escape this place. Meanwhile, Donna is starting to emotionally break after the suicide that took place earlier. Now, let me just say, I really like this conversation between Ellis and Fatima because I thought it was a really legit concern to have after living in this nightmarish kind of place. I mean, your PTSD has got to be off the charts if you were to come from Fromville back to the real world. I mean, could you ever sleep the same? You know, like, could you trust your dreams or nightmares? Would you still sleep with a talisman hanging on your door? I mean, we know how difficult it can be for people who just have fought in wars for long periods of time and come back home, and that PTSD could be real for them. You know, we know people that go off to jail for a long period of time and how hard it is for them to readjust back into society. None of that could be easy to do, so I can only imagine coming from this town to the real world is not going to be a piece of cake. As for Donna, I can feel where she's coming from. Realize that she's been here for a couple of years. She's seen what life was like before they even had the talisman, and she had to hide from the monsters every night. It wasn't until Boyd had those talisman that life got a little bit easier for them. So imagine going from total crap to some semblance of normalcy, and then to have that kind of threatened all over again. So Donna losing the colony house is definitely a big blow to whatever hope people might have had in this place. Then, of course, now you have this tower radio thing that's potentially, you know, building up hope all over again. And I mean, after so much misery, it is just one thing to hold on to a tiny bit of hope, but it's devastating to have your hopes raised and then dashed all over again. Back at the Matthews house, Ethan says that the drawings from Victor, they all fit together as a story. But as they go through the pictures, they do get more gruesome, and Tabitha thinks rather than trying to figure out everything, they should just go play another game instead. Look, I don't know how many times I could say this, but Ethan is the key to all of this. I mean, all these pictures on the table mean something, obviously. And he said that they can't finish the quest without finishing or knowing the story. And if we think back to what Victor had said, he said that this was all starting again, which gives me the impression here that we're dealing with some sort of cycle of events that keeps on repeating. Now, of course, if folks actually decided to pay attention to these, these drawings and, make sense of whatever story they're trying to tell, this show is probably going to end a lot sooner than later. But hey, we got to stretch this out, right? So let's continue ignoring Ethan and everything he says. Right, Tabitha? Anyway, let's take a look at some of these drawings, though. I thought one of the key images here were the spiders during what looks to be rain, I'm assuming. However, you also have what appears to be maybe a flood that could be happening. There were people laying on the roof of a house, so it's possible that a flood of some sort happened in this place in the past, and right after that, the brutal massacre happened. Then there was that image of a crystal ball as if the town were inside of one. Now, this is a bit odd because it makes me question Victor of all people. He's the one drawing this picture. So what crystal ball did Victor see that just so happened to have a representation of the town inside of it? Did Victor actually see this, or was this all a dream? I don't know, but you guys let me know. What did you make of the drawings that Victor made? Jade and Jim try to figure out how to power the radio with the batteries that they got from the cars. Jade wants to find Victor with the hope that he can decipher the symbol. Kenny comes to Donna out of concern after the suicidal resident. He insisted that they still need wood, and Donna snaps. She grabs an axe and starts chopping up wood from the floor of Colony House. She heads off to the bar until Kenny comes back to check on her again. Poor Donna. Y'all know I like Donna for real. She's like one of my favorite characters, but she's usually like so calm and collected when everybody else is losing their minds and stuff. Remember, like back in the very first episode when, we first got introduced to Colony House and everybody was freaking out and everything. Donna was the only one that was like, all right, look, get the guns on them, sit them down. Let me tell you about what's going on in this town. Like, she was the cool leader that we all knew. But right now, Donna, it looked like she done reached her limit. Which is understandable. I mean, we saw her earlier looking at a picture of her sister. And again, keep in mind that she's been here for so long. But what was interesting here was what Donna ended up saying at the bar. Kenny had said that they should keep on trying to find a way back home. And Donna mentioned how at least here in the town, the monsters have the decency to show you who they are. Now, this kind of makes me wonder, like, is there more to Donna than that we have to learn about? Like, is there more to her past that she's letting on here? Because what monsters did she have to deal with back in the real world that were being fake with her? Anyway, she's definitely got a real good point here with Kenny, because if the radio does not end up working, then getting people's hopes up again could have bad consequences. In the woods, Sarah tells Boyd that he reminds her of her brother Nathan. She also shares with him Nathan's theory that if you try to leave, then something would push back. The two come across bottles hanging in a tree. Before Boyd could take one down, Sarah writhes in pain, saying that she can hear them. She collapses and has a seizure. Oh man, here we go again with Sarah having another seizure. Now, the last time we saw her have a seizure, I want to say it was back at the diner when the voices in her head told her to go kill the boy. And no, Sarah does not have worms. Ugh. Now, I suppose that this means that the bottles hanging in the trees might have some sort of psychic or spiritual connection along with them. I'm not really sure, but clearly something triggered her to make her go into this type of seizure. Now, let's not forget that earlier in this episode, in Tabitha's dream, she saw a random glass bottle falling down the steps. But of course, the big question here is like, yo, where did these bottles come from? Are they actually a bad thing because the voices in Sarah's head, they were not feeling those bottles at all? And it really makes you wonder, are the voices good or are they bad? I believe when people have seizures here, it's probably a sign that something else is at play here. But whatever that could be, you guys let me know what you think. Boyd and Sarah are inside the tent with the talisman hanging up. He managed to get a bottle down, but the only thing that was written on it was 1864. Sarah said that the voice she heard was very different, and it was from a woman. The voice screamed that she was wrong and that there are things that are worse than the monsters. The voice also mentioned to tell the message to Mr. Fish and Loaves. Suddenly, the tent is jostled around. When it finally stops, they hear a loud horn and bright light flashing before them. Whoa. Okay. So now this is where it's getting juicy. So Sarah is finally hearing a different voice from a different woman. And here's the thing, right before that, she did say that she was told about Abby's story, but that doesn't really mean that she knew who Abby was. Sarah had only been in town for a few months, while Boyd had lost Abby like about a year or more ago. Now, the Mr. Fish and Loaves thing we learned in episode 8 was actually Boyd's nickname. That wasn't something Sarah could possibly know. So once again, these voices seem like there's more to them. Now, the first thought in my mind here was that, when people die, maybe they become ghosts and they're just trapped here. Maybe this is the purgatory thing happening all over again. I don't know. Maybe that was, Abby talking to Sarah. Maybe it was not. But let's kind of go with it as if it were Abby. If so, she said she was wrong. I think she meant that she was wrong that everyone was asleep and they're all having a nightmare. Recall that she was under the impression that by killing everyone, it would wake them up and send them home. But if this is Abby, and if she was wrong, and if she's still able to communicate with Sarah, I think that says a lot. It seems like Abby, if that's really her, can see Boyd even though she's dead. Now, how is any of that possible? That's anyone's guess, but you guys let me know what you think could be the case. Now, I think this is where we need to backtrack again and talk about Tabitha's dream that happened earlier in the episode. Now, Boyd found a bottle, right, that had the year 1864 written on it. Well, this is where I think there's a major connection going on. Of course, we know that 1864 was one of the years that was found in Tabitha's dream earlier in the episode. Also, when you think back to Jade's vision, he saw Union soldiers hanging from the trees. I think that they were hanging pretty similar to how those bottles were hanging. Could the dead bodies hanging be a representation of the bottles? Also, remember back in the dream, Jim was also hanging upside down. Could this be foreshadowing that maybe Jim is destined to die? So, thinking about this show, a lot of things obviously come to mind. And I think one of the questions that I like to ask myself, and I think a lot of you guys ask this question too, is kind of like, yo, where did all these monsters or creatures come from? We ask, where do they come from? But I think that maybe this could flip the question a little bit. Maybe with all these dates, maybe we're asking the wrong question. Rather than asking where they come from, maybe we need to be asking when do they come from? Could time travel actually be an element in this show? Possibly. I think that there is enough reason to believe, at least, I don't know if time travel is in there, but there's at least enough evidence to believe that there is a cycle of violence that is going on. Now, as for the whole tent thing with Boyd and Sarah, listen, at first, my very first thought was, I thought they were attacked by some monsters, from the town or whatever. But that didn't really make sense because they had the talisman up, and we already know if the talisman are up, the monsters usually just stay away. So if it wasn't the monsters, then what exactly was it? Now, I do believe that there are three possibilities of what could have happened with Sarah and Boyd in the tent. Now, for the first possibility, again, I don't think that the tent was actually attacked, but maybe they were transported or something. Now, here's the thing. We know that faraway trees are a thing, and we know that they teleport people. I thought that maybe the tent got caught up in some sort of dimensional pocket or something, and maybe we're just kind of seeing what happens when someone gets transported somewhere. Maybe it's a bumpy ride. We don't really know. Now, the second possibility is maybe Boyd and Sarah have been caught up in the forest shifting around. Recall earlier in the show when Victor was recording the movement of the trees. We have no idea what's going on with these trees, but it could be possible that Boyd and Sarah have been caught up in the movement and the shifting of the trees because they are kind of in the forest. We don't know what happens inside the forest compared to what happens on the edge of it. Now, there is a third possibility of what happened with Boyd and Sarah in the tent, and I do believe it is probably the most likely reason. However, I'm going to save that explanation for the next breakdown in episode 10, only because I think it's a kind of a bit of a spoiler, and I think it makes more sense once we get to episode 10. So make sure you tune in for the next video to hear what really happened in the tent with Boyd and Sarah. Lastly, we saw a light flashing and the sound of a horn blowing, and this is very similar to what Tabitha heard and saw in her dream as well. Now, what is making this noise and where they are is something we'll just have to wait and see in the next episode. I know for those of you that have already seen the episode and seen the season, you know what it is. But for those of you who haven't finished the season yet, it will be revealed very soon. All right, that was it for the episode. Now's the time where I give you guys my rating for this episode. And you know what? Look, when it comes to the rating for season 1, episode 9, I think I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I mean, it really turned up the mystery and the suspense. I love the buildup and the odd things that were happening that were just making me ask all these questions. So listen, you've got my interest piqued. So you guys tell me, what rating would you give this episode? Let me know in the comments down below. Now is also the time where I go ahead and give you guys some of the clues that I thought were very important in this episode that might carry over into the rest of the season. Now, the first clue I think is what Sarah told Boyd about Nathan's theory about this place. He believed that if you tried to leave or do something crazy, this place could push back. Well, I'll just say that we have to stay tuned to find out whether this theory is true or not, but I don't think they threw this in here for no reason. As for the other clue, I think we have to kind of go back to Tabitha's dream because some of the objects I found were pretty interesting. Now, when we go back to the dream, there were some objects found on the stairs, and I thought, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm mistaken, but I thought about the toys that were there. I understood seeing the little finger toys that Ethan and Julie were playing with since the very first episode. However, we also saw a fire truck and a playing card that were on the stairs. Now, again, I don't recall seeing Ethan playing with a fire truck, and I also don't recall them playing with any cards. But again, if I missed something, please let me know. So I'm guessing that maybe the fire truck and the playing card could be something that is a hint for something that's going to happen in the show. Not sure, but you guys just stay tuned. Maybe we'll find out. Okay, so if you have not finished season 1, this is the point of the video where I'm going to tell you, you got to go, you got to turn it off, because I'm going to talk to the people that have watched, all of season 1 and have watched season 2, because we're going to get into some spoiler talk. So this is your spoiler alert. Do not spoil it for yourself. If you have not caught up to the end of this season, if you haven't gone into the next one, go away. This is not for you. That was your warning. Okay. Now that y'all have been warned. For those of you that have caught up to season 2, we found out that there was a bigger terror that Boyd brought back into the town along with him. Now, I made a whole theory video about this, and I proposed that the entity that tricked Boyd was actually the boogeyman. Now, in my theory video, I completely forgot to mention this concept of the boogeyman was not something that I just arbitrarily made up. It was actually brought up by Ethan.
There's drawings of scarecrows and boogeymen, Giant spiders? This is definitely a quest.
So with what Ethan just said, I believe that Boyd really did encounter a boogeyman in season 2. I also think that Martin was never real either. But hey, you can go check that theory out and see for yourself. Now, one other thing that we have to talk about is the crystal ball that Victor drew. Now, again, I'm still wondering how Victor drew this or why he drew it. Maybe it was a dream or something, but what was very clearly shown in this image was that there were underground tunnels that we soon discover at the beginning of season 2. So again, this really makes you wonder what is going on with these drawings and why does Victor know this? But anyway, y'all let me know, what did you think about that drawing and how it potentially impacts maybe season 3. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I really appreciate it. Don't you worry, I will be working on episode 10 for you guys. There's going to be so much more stuff, and then I got more videos to try and hold us over until season 3 finally drops. So again, I got you covered. Make sure you come on back. If you like what you see, like this video, and don't forget to subscribe. But until next time, guys, I'll see you later. If you're new here and you like what you see, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell so you don't miss out the next time I drop a video. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.